Hey, thanks for clicking on the video. Today we're checking out the best Warlock build I've ever used. While technically not new, this version is so much stronger than anything before it that it feels like cheating. And I don't say that lightly. Even in endgame content, I can take my hands off my keyboard and clear entire rooms with ease. Like, without lifting a finger, we are hitting DPS equivalent to that of heavy weapons. And by doing nothing, we can stun and subsequently bake champions. Yeah, this build is cracked, like probably a little too hot, but I love it. So today we'll be looking at each part of this build, and we'll especially be showcasing all the new synergies that you need to know about. Now, before we begin, as usual, there are timestamps and a dim link down below for your convenience. And if you enjoy my content, you like builds and informative Destiny stuff, you should subscribe. It's free, it keeps you updated on Destiny, and it helps me out a lot. And if you're a returning viewer, joining the Discord link down below would mean a lot to me. I'm trying to grow my community and would love to have you as part of it. All right, diving into the build, we are leveraging the changes to armor stats and how Warlock buddies or constructs now count as grenade damage. And when it comes to exotics, the best and foremost option for buddy builds is Getaway Artist. This exotic reads, convert your Arc Grenade into an Arc Soul and become amplified. The Arc Soul functions as an autonomous turret. Now, I imagine we're all familiar with this little guy. In game, we can hold grenade on any subclass as long as you have an Arc Grenade and get the Sentient Arc Soul buff for 15 seconds. Simultaneously, this makes us amplified for 20. Now, the Arc Soul buff just indicates how long the Arc Soul is going to last for. When it comes to the effects of the Arc Soul, well, it does damage, as you're seeing here, and we'll cover DPS and stuff in a moment. But one more thing that this Arc Soul does is that it refunds a little bit of grenade energy upon dealing any damage. We can actually see little chunks regenning per burst, although do note that this effect is lessened when paired with Devour. But even then, it's kind of wild to see that this grenade ability refunds grenade energy. Not many cases of that self-feeding loop exist. Now though, let's talk Arc Soul damage. In this clip, we have less than 100 grenade stat, and our Arc Soul deals 65 damage per shot and has about 270 DPS. Before this week's update, that was pretty much all the damage you'd get. But now, the easiest way to see some damage numbers go up is by upping our grenade stat to 200. At this point, we should be getting a 65% increase in damage according to the menu. And in-game, our Arc Soul is now dealing 108 damage individually with about 445 DPS, which is a flat 65% increase. So Bungie's update went through, and we can now build into this and abuse it, which we will be doing today. But as we move on to our subclass and artifact, I want us to take note on our DPS values so you can see how that increases deeper into the build, which, like I said, our next step is actually into our subclass rather than our weapons. As for this build, we don't need an exotic weapon, we don't need a legendary weapon, which makes it perfect for endgame, raid, or dungeon content. So, within our prismatic subclass, we'll move left to right. Beginning with our super, the best and most viable is Song of Flame. This supports our team with damage resistance, makes us pretty much invincible, and puts out great damage. Our class ability is going to be Phoenix Dive, so we can stay mobile, and so we have the lowest cooldown. Empowering Rift did get massively buffed recently, but I just like to move too much. On from that, we have our melee. This one is going to be Arcane Needle because we get 3 charges and it unravels enemies. This unravel will actually add to our AFK DPS, but will tally up the whole subclass after our aspects and a particular couple of fragments. And then our last ability is of course Storm Grenade because we need it for our exotic armor piece to work. Can't really spawn an Arc Soul without it. Now then, moving into our aspects, the one that we'll be taking for its passive benefits is Feed the Void. This aspect grants us enhanced Devour upon scoring any ability kill. And in game, we can see Devour activating off of an Arc Soul kill, and then every kill we get after that will be healing us while refunding our grenade energy. So as we run around, we have insane survivability and ability regen. Back in our subclass, our second aspect is Hellion. This aspect is one of my favorites in the entire game and is another thing that got massively buffed with the recent patch. This aspect states that whenever we cast our class ability, we will spawn a solar mortar. Now, this little guy benefits the exact same as our Arc Soul does, meaning it gets a 65% damage boost when you're at the 200 grenade stat. Looking at the effect of this aspect in a vacuum though, Hellion will do 426 damage alongside some Scorch, and it will cause an ignition after 4 shots. That ignition isn't buffed by the grenade stat, but still hits for a respectable 807. This aspect is just fantastic on its own, but if we take this and add it into the larger equation, pairing this with Getaway Artists, our new DPS value, again, not shooting our weapons, doing nothing but casting abilities, is now around 850. And this is only going to get higher. But now, continuing on our subclass and finishing it off, we have our Fragments. The first one we run is Facet of Hope. This fragment will massively decrease our class ability cooldown whenever we have any buff, which Amplified and Devour are considered. After that, we have Facet of Protection. This fragment will offer us some damage resist when nearby enemies. And next, we run Facet of Dominance. This fragment is truly insane. It says that it makes our arc grenades jolt and our void grenades weaken. That applies to a Getaway Artist's Arc Soul, as you're seeing in the background footage. Every single shot from our Arc Soul will jolt enemies, which means it has extended anti-wear and it can even stun overload champions. You can also combo this fragment with Transcendence grenades to weaken via that method, because they do count as void grenades. And then lastly, we run Facet of Courage, where this one will increase our light ability damage against dark debuffed enemies. And this is the one that actually requires a bit of a showcase, because if we throw an arcane needle at an enemy to unravel them, that counts as a dark debuff, but it also adds even more passive damage. So looking at the combination of all these effects, we unravel, spawn an Arc Soul, spawn a Hellion, and our new DPS is going to be a bit above 1,100. This is already equivalent to the best weapon in the game, Mint Retrograde. And you can use that and this at the same exact time. Also, this isn't even the cap to our AFK damage. Moving away from the subclass though, we do want to spend a bit more time on Mint Retrograde and other weapons. At the beginning of the video, I stated we don't need any specific weapon for this build, and that's absolutely true. But there are, of course, some recommendations. Mint is my chief one, but after that, I'd heavily recommend using some kind of dark energy weapon as a means to build dark transcendence energy. The reason being, most of our outgoing damage is light aligned. For our energy slot, your tight Apex is pretty good, but again, you can use whatever, and then cater your heavy to whatever activity you might be in. For me, recently, it's just been Wolfsbane. Now then, onto armor. Stat-wise, we need 200 grenade for this build. You can use fonts, but I'd try not to, as it puts you on a timer. After grenade though, we want to have close to 100 class and super if you can manage. Weapons, melee, and health stats are all pretty meaningless in this build, so if those end up being pretty abysmal, that's alright. Also, there is no armor set bonus necessary today. Now onto armor mods. On the helmet, we run ammo finders and siphons for whatever element weapon you use the most. On the arms, we run 2 firepower, so every 5 seconds we get an orb when one of our souls kills something. Firepower is always going to be on cooldown. On the chest, we run an ammo generation and some resists. On our boots, we will have an insulation to get some class ability back on orb pickup, and an absolution to get a bit of everything back too. And then there's room for a scavenger for your special weapon. And lastly, on the class item, a special finisher exists to get infinite ammo, a powerful attraction to pick up orbs whenever we Phoenix dive, which there will be tons of orbs all over the field, and then a proximity ward so that we become invincible when doing finishers. But now for our last topic, we have the artifact. Within, there aren't too many things that synergize with this build, but there are some pretty big ones. The first is Radiant Shrapnel. This perk will cause Solar Seekers to spawn when we deal damage against anything while we are either radiant or while the enemy is scorched. These little Seekers are like a mini Hellion of sorts. But then the next and biggest perk that we can use here is a Shield Crush. This perk is a fan favorite for how it increases both the regen and damage of our melees and grenades. Most people use this perk to increase their melee damage, but here we are, of course, focusing on the grenade side of things. While Amplified or Radiant, which are the 2 buffs we'll have the most and have a near permanent uptime on, our grenade damage should be increased by 25%. It also decreases our grenade cooldown too. And in-game, using our Arc Soul as an example, a regular burst does 108 per shot. But with this perk active now, we get Amplified from our soul itself. It is now dealing 134 per shot. So Shield Crush does apply to all of our souls on top of the base grenades. That means with everything we've seen today, by just popping 3 abilities, not even shooting our weapons, taking my hands completely off the keyboard, our DPS is hovering around 1300. That is a ridiculous amount. That's up there with and surpasses some heavy weapons. And of course, you can apply a debuff to your target and have that number go even higher. This is most easily done by simply popping Transcendence and throwing a Transcendence grenade. So yeah, AFK DPS is pretty good. But now with everything important divulged, let's talk the gameplay loop. We begin without needing to do much besides consume our already available abilities. Hold down your grenade and then do a Phoenix Dive. This will spawn our 2 most lethal parts of this build, being Arc Soul and Hellion, and with these 2 active, there is no doubt that they will score a kill, which will then activate Devour. It will simultaneously be amplified thanks to Getaway Artist, which will result in these 2 buffs keeping your health topped off, giving you damage resistance, and fast tracking us to our next grenade and class ability. Whenever you come up against something that won't die instantly, using your Arcane Needle will increase your autonomous damage, and you can still, of course, use your weapons. Sooner rather than later, you will also have Transcendence available. While Transcendence is still very good in this build, you want to make sure to pop a fresh Arc Soul before going Transcendent, as you cannot consume your grenade while Transcendent. You can refresh Hellion though. Lastly, eventually you'll find a boss or you'll get yourself into a pickle. At that point, you should cast your super. Bonus points if you do it after activating your 2 souls, as they will remain active while you're in super. Basically, this entire build revolves around keeping Arc Soul and Hellion up while you do whatever you want. These 2 will act as an insane source of extra damage that it's almost like you have an entire other person doing damage at all times right next to you. And I think that's the entire build. Remember, there is a dim link down below for your convenience. And if you enjoy this build, you want to see more, make sure you do subscribe because I've got a lot more in the pipeline. Thank you to Bungie for reviving builds with the most recent update. And with that said, if you want to support me, support the channel, a like, a comment, a subscription goes a very long way. If you want to support me and support the channel but you can't think of a comment down below, AFK. With that, as usual, I hope you are having a great day and I hope to see you around.